Hey there, we're taking a look at Dark Souls 3 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now, the last time we tested this game on this chip, it was when I had only 8 GB of RAM in here. Now we have 16, and this time around we're going to be testing it at 15 watts and at 25 watts. So at 15 watts is what you're looking at here, running at 720p with the lowest in-game graphical settings. Now, one thing to note is that the servers are still offline for pretty much all of the Dark Souls games. Elden Ring is the only Soulsborne game that currently has functioning multiplayer. So if the multiplayer being enabled would have impacted the performance in any way, it is not being measured here. This is pretty much in offline mode because the servers are still offline. And at the 15 watt configuration at 720p, this is actually very playable. The 1% lows are dipping down into the mid 30s, but it's nothing that I would say is detrimental to the overall gaming experience. It's pretty enjoyable. It's going to be a really smooth experience, and honestly I think you're going to be able to have a really good time playing like this. And the best part is since this is running at the stock 15 watts, you're not using up a whole lot of power. It's running relatively cool. I mean, it's just at 58 degrees C running this right now. This is a really cool experience. It is running super smooth, and honestly the noise is even not bad at all. This is a really ideal situation, though we can of course improve the overall experience here because there is noticeable stutter just because of the fact that there is going to be some fluctuation, though it's only noticeable in the video here, not really noticeable while playing because of the fact that the game is running within the FPS range to support the FreeSync on this actual laptop display. So on the display of the laptop, this looks perfectly fine, but there will be screen tearing that you'll notice throughout the video that is not present on the laptop itself. That being said, if you do hook it up to a monitor that does not support FreeSync, then you're going to run into the screen tearing issue. But another thing we can do here is of course turn up the resolution to 1080p to see what we get there, though I think you can tell by the 1% lows that we're getting here that that's not necessarily going to be the great experience. So let me show you that right now. As you could see, the 1% lows are really the biggest issue here at 1080p. It is really dipping down. The average is struggling to even get close to 30, really. So the overall experience at 1080p at the stock 15 watt TDP is just not going to be playable at all. 720p was a much better experience. 1080p here is really pushing things. You're only going to be playing like this if you're so desperate for the resolution, but honestly just drop things down to like 900p if you're that sensitive about resolution, because at least then it'll level out those 1% lows more. I mean, there are sections throughout this that it almost felt like a slideshow. It was kind of brutal, really not an enjoyable experience. I don't think most people would find this to be a good time, but we can of course also turn up the TDP. Of course that is going to be introducing more heat and more noise, but we can squeeze out some more gaming performance overall. So let's take a look at that now. As you can see, at 720p we are actually getting some very nice performance here. The 1% lows are now in the 50s range and the FPS is at 60, which means that we're pretty much just going to be getting the smoothest experience possible out of this chip here, and it's honestly a great experience. There will be occasional dips, things will drop down. I mean, you'll see 1% lows are now in the 40s, but really it's nothing major. It's going to be a enjoyable experience almost the entirety of the time, especially because you are within FreeSync range. Things are going to look super smooth on the actual display on here. Like, the video itself does not do the game justice because of the fact that you can't see it with the FreeSync enabled, but the performance increase here is more than worth it enough that I would say that honestly it is worth the temperature increase and noise increase versus the 15 watts because it is a overall just smoother experience. Even 1080p manages to be salvaged a little bit here just because of the fact that a nice little bump in the 1% lows where it's now no longer threatening to touch 20 FPS and it's more in the mid 20s does make the experience overall a little bit better, especially because we did get a bump in the averages. So I don't think it's enough to really justify playing like this. I feel like if you're going to be playing this game on here, might as well just drop it down to, again, if you're really sensitive to resolution, just go 900p, but 720p just gives you a overall great experience that I really think that the resolution drop is worth it. It's really up to you to decide what is more valuable to you, but I think in terms of just playability to the game, what matters more is just getting that higher FPS so that you can have more control over what you're doing, where you feel like you're more responsive. But really, I mean, I guess that's just my assumption. It might be different for you. But anyways, I will see you in the next one.